Good evening, good afternoon, everyone.
The result, it's not something you multiply times something, this is the result.
So we're gonna go ahead and get started because I don't want this to be a 3-hour meeting, which I didn't plan for that. But it's a real robust conversation as it relates to Broadview property taxes, and I want it to be a very transparent and accountability. So this conversation is really about understanding, getting educated on how taxes are implemented to us, the taxpayer. And I've asked all of our school boards that we pay taxes into the school system, and we have 6 school districts in the village of Broadview. We have District 209, District 209 is Proviso Township High School. We have District 208, Riverside Brookfield, who was invited, didn't get a response. District 94, which is Comaric, North Riverside. The superintendent said he was unavailable. We have District 89, Dr. Hassan.
89.
89?
Oh, sorry.
That's all right. Maywood, Bellwood, Broadview, Melrose Park. We have District 88, which is Bellwood. We have students in District 88, which is Bellwood School District. And we have Lindop School District, District 92. So we have all of these school districts. So across the community, our taxes can go either way based on the school system that you're in. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. We do have Commissioner Larry R. Rogers Jr. that will be participating. I know he's running a little bit behind schedule, so wherever we are in the conversation, I'm going to take a pause so that he can give some welcome and some advice on where the next steps is as it relates to the Cook County Board of Review for the Village of Broadview. But thank you for joining us this afternoon for the Broadview Property Tax Town Hall. I'm excited and grateful for the leadership in the Village of Broadview. We have our finance director who will do a lot of the presentation on the different taxing bodies that we have and how we spend our money in the Village of Broadview on a municipal level. I want to extend my heartfelt thanks to our invited guests, Lindop District 92, Bellwood District 88, Proviso District 209, Maywood, Broadview, Melrose Park District 89, Broadview Park District, Broadview Public Library, and our Cook County Commissioner, Larry R. Rogers. Thank you all for being in attendance. This meeting is aimed to inform and educate us about property taxes. To do so, we must acknowledge the past and unpack a very complicated tax code. We are here to gain knowledge about where our money is going and how we can collectively advocate for real change in our property tax system. We can no longer kick the can down the road and apply Band-Aids to stop the bleeding when bleeding is rapidly worsening. Together, we must find tangible solutions, and I need your help and your ideas so that I can effectively tell Broadview's story. Addressing housing disparities requires a multifaceted approach, including policy reform, enforcement of anti-discrimination laws, investment in affordable housing, and the community-driven solutions to ensure equitable access to housing opportunities for Black and Hispanic communities. Property taxes can be an issue of systemic racism due to several interconnected factors. One of those factors is historical redlining. Historical Black and Hispanic neighborhoods were redlined, leading to lower property values and less investment. 2, unequal assessments. Properties in minority communities are often assessed at higher rates relative to their market value compared to predominantly white neighborhoods, resulting in a higher tax burden. Funding for our public services. School funding, property taxes are the primary source of funding for public schools. Lower property tax values in minority communities lead to less funding for schools, perpetuating educational inequalities and public services. And equitable distribution of property tax revenues can result in fewer resources for public services in minority communities. The economic impact, wealth accumulation, lower home ownership rates are and property values in Black and Hispanic communities limit wealth accumulation and economic mobility. 2, tax burden. Higher tax rates in minority communities can stain household finances, limited opportunities for economic advancement, and how we address the issue. To address these disparities, reforms could include equitable assessments, ensure fair and accurate property tax assessments, school funding reform, shifting more education funding to state-level sources to reduce reliance on local property taxes, and affordable housing policies, promoting affordable housing initiatives to support home ownership in minorities communities. Understanding and addressing these systemic issues is critical for creating a more equitable property tax system. So I say all of that to say over the past well, since I got my tax bill, because I pay taxes too, on 2 properties in Broadview. And so I started doing a deeper dive into the system. And a lot of times, we get caught up in the system, especially in America. So if you go back to the 1930s, when blacks could not get mortgages, they got contracts on their homes. And when they got those contracts on their homes, if they didn't pay that contract, they lost their home. So that caused for immediate eviction and homelessness or going to live with a loved one. Fast forward, then we went into redlining. When we went into the redlining, some of us couldn't move in certain areas, and that's real prevalent in Broadview because we have 6 school districts. And at one point, District 94, which is North Riverside Broadview, which is the Comaric and the Riverside Brookfield, we was all one school district. We had 94 and 92, and we have 92 and a half, which is Westchester. At some point in the 30s, they all broke off and became one school district. I don't know why. I'm not from Illinois. But something happened. Then you got to look at the zoning, how things were being zoned. So when you go over to the Harvest area, you know where the Aldi's is on Certmac? And you have single-family homes over there. You have single-family homes and you have an apartment complex. This is when zoning come into play. You have an apartment complex and you got the single-family home. Well, the families that live in the single-family homes on that side of town, those children go to Comaric, District 94. From K through 8th grade. When they graduate from 8th grade, instead of going on to Riverside Brookfield, they have to go to Proviso East, District 209. Now, the families that live in the multi-family units, apartments over there, those children that's K to 8 go to Lindop. That means they have to cross over railroad tracks to get to school. And some of the apartments that's on the other side of the railroad tracks on 17, those kids have to cross over those tracks to get to Lindop School to go to school. So we can see the blatant systemic racism that took place even within our own town. But how we unpackage that, I don't know what the best answer is. So I really wanted to have this conversation with the players that's here with our school districts and with our team so you all exactly know where your money is going, because when I looked at the tax bill and I saw where your money is going and I started looking at, you know, the different pots that it's going, I can vouch how we spend our money in the village of Broadview on the municipal side. I also can say that I can see a lot of good work that's taking place in the school districts that they're doing. Even though we don't see the student achievement where we would want to see our kids educated, I know that they're making some good investments into the education as they move their district forward. So I invited the districts to come and tell their story, and then we have our library. We've invited our park district as well. So I do see Commissioner Larry Rogers here, and I know that you're on a very tight schedule, so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna step aside and let him greet us in the village of Broadview, and then from Commissioner Rogers, we'll turn it over to Tom Hood, our finance director, and then if you all have questions or anything like that, once we get through the presentation, we'll be welcome to answer your questions, or if you have any questions from any members of the other taxing bodies, that would be appropriate at that time. So thank you, Commissioner, for being here, and welcome to Broadview.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Larry Rogers. I'm Commissioner of Cook County Board of Review. The Board of Review consists of 3 elected commissioners. One is a majority Latino district, one is a majority white district, one is a majority African American district, based upon the last census. Broadview has been a part of my district for the last 20 years that I've been in office. This is my 20th year. By way of background, I'm a lawyer. I've been a lawyer now for 30 years. In my law practice, I don't do any property tax work, or real estate work. I do personal injury and wrongful death litigation work, representing everyday people. And I look at what I do as a commissioner similarly in that I try to help everyday people navigate what's going on with the property tax system, and in particular challenge assessed values set by a Cook County assessor where they think they've been over-assessed. Anybody here think they've been over-assessed in their properties? Okay, me too, by the way. So let me explain the process a bit because it can be a confusing process. Cook County has 38 townships, and the Cook County assessor assesses 1/3 of Cook County every 3 years. They do the northern part of Cook County, the southern part, and then sort of the city of Chicago and the western part. the city of Chicago, I'm sorry, is its own little district. So right now, the city of Chicago is being reassessed. And that assessed value that's set typically lasts you 3 years. Now, years ago, when you got assessed and it lasted you 3 years, your properties generally increased in value, so you didn't mind being reassessed every 3 years. But now we're seeing significant fluctuations in the value of property, such that sometimes your values are decreasing in value, which is why now we really encourage people to file property tax appeals at least twice a year at least. Once with the Cook County assessor to give him a chance to correct the value, and then one with the Cook County Board of Review. The way the cycle works is the assessor assesses the property. He gives you a notice of the assessed value. He gives you an opportunity to appeal in his office. Once he decides the appeals and certifies and finalizes the numbers, then the Board of Review can open for the filing of appeals. And our agency is meant to be an independent agency that has no vested interest in the assessor's values, so that you can challenge those values without concern that the assessor is trying to maintain the value he set. So it's an independent agency. It's kind of like an appellate court. If you think at the trial level something went wrong, you can appeal to the next level. We're that next level, the Board of Review, with regard to assessed values. At our agency, we don't assess property. We do no assessments of property. What we do is look at value of property based upon evidence. The evidence that we consider is, it can be appraisals, it can be recent sales evidence, meaning like properties like yours that sold in your area, and then we look at uniformity. That's the type of evidence and the basis that we can utilize to give you reductions in value. And historically, 6 out of every 10 appeals that are filed get some type of relief with our agency. With uniformity, in essence, we look at the properties in and around your property and those that are like yours. If the assessor assessed those lower than yours, we have the authority to reduce the value of yours to the value he set on like properties in your area to that, so that there's uniformity. The problem we have had more recently is that the assessor has overassessed everybody, so the uniformity analysis is challenging because we may lower you to a value that's still too high because he's overassessed other properties. So we try to look at novel ways to give you as much relief as we can. If you have evidence of vacant lots, vacant properties, evidence of flooding, anything that you think affected your value during that given year, if you provide that to us and we can factor it in, we will factor it in to try to give you some relief. Once we decide our appeals, those values are used to determine the value that will be used to calculate your tax bill. So right now, we are open for filing, but the process between the assessments and the appeals and the Department of Revenue assigning an equalizer takes about 9 to 10 months. So what Cook County does is taxes you 1 year in arrears. So the taxes you're paying now in 2024 are based upon 2023. The evaluations that the assessor is using now will be used to generate the tax bills in 2025. So you receive 2 tax bills because that process is a 9 to 10 month process, and rather than give you one large bill that would be due around August 1st, the county divides it into 2 bills. Your first bill is 55% of the amount you paid the prior year. So if you paid $1,000 tax bill, $1,000 in taxes in 2020, let's say 2023, then your March bill in 2024 would be $550, just 55% of what you paid the prior year. While the vested entities are calculating and appealing the bill and coming up with your final value, your second installment bill is a product of what your total tax bill is minus what you paid in March. So using the example that I just provided, if your tax bill was $1,000 in 2023, your March bill is $550, and then if through the process, your bill went down from $1,000 to $900, you take 900 minus 550 and you'd owe 350. If your bill if your taxes went up to 1,100, you take 1,100 minus 550 and your bill would be 550, your second installment bill. So your appeals at the Board of Review are used to calculate to determine the value of your property that will be used to calculate your second installment bill the following year. So right now we're beginning to open for appeals where individuals want to challenge the assessed value set by the assessor. We just opened townships. Those first townships closed August 20th. What we try to encourage people to do is pre-file. What we mean by that is beginning when you first get your bill this year in July, up through the first closing period of August 20th, no matter where you are in Cook County, you can file with the Board of Review. If your township is not open, we will do what's called pre-file your appeal. So everyone here should, if you want to challenge your assessed values, you should file now with the Board of Review so that when the township here in Proviso opens, we can consider your appeal filed at that time. The way you file is to go to cookcountyboardofreview.com. That's the easiest way. You can go on there and create an account, include your email, and you'll receive email notifications of when your township opens. You'll receive result letters by email. It's just a much easier way to file the appeals. You can also upload photos or appraisals or any other evidence that you want us to consider with your appeal. So that's sort of the process of appealing. I don't think the mayor wants to get into anything beyond the process at this point. Otherwise, I'd have some choice things to say about what's happening in the assessor's office, but we'll leave it right there for now. Any questions?
Yes, I have one.
Sure.
I filed an appeal a couple years ago, and I was told that, well, I was told that it ended up going up for some reason. So they said sometimes it's not good to file an appeal.
Sure. So the Board of Review never increases your assessed value. We either leave it where it was set by the assessor or reduce it. So there's no risk associated with filing an appeal. The one exception to that can be instances where you are a senior and you have frozen taxes at a certain level. Those are determined based upon the value of your property at the time your taxes were frozen. If you have that reevaluated and the value changes, it can change your freeze amount. So most people who have senior freezes, for instance, have relatively low bills and don't need to appeal. Right? Dana's my director of outreach. Did you want to add anything to that? Okay.
Could I ask you a question?
Sure.
A few years back, they went to the 55-45 split. Are they going to return to the 50-50 like it used to be?
What are you referring to?
Your tax bills, like in that first tax
Oh.
bill, it used to be 50% of the prior years. I can't remember, something happened and they made it 55.
Yeah, I think it's been 55 for a while.
Yeah.
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 The goal there is just to split the bill, and I think they did 55%, so hopefully the second installment is lower and you're
Yeah.
less upset. I mean, that's just pure speculation on my part. Yes, sir.
Why is it that they have all of this peeling and this and that and all of this stuff? Why is it can't be kind of general what your tax gonna be? And we understand, I mean, I guess most of us understand here, the reason why everybody's tax bill went up so high this last time was because of the assessor, as you said, he assessed the properties more than that much more, the all of the taxing bodies, because they levy, everybody gonna pay more.
Yeah.
And you know, I've been living in Broadview for almost 50 years, and I mean, you know, it's just really outrageous. You know, it don't make any sense, because I have family members that live in other places, and I'm pretty sure everybody else do too. You know, and sometimes their tax bills and things is a little bit level, not going up $2,000 and $3,000. You know, $1,800 more. I mean, you know, and you looking for people to come up with that kind of money, and if you're on fixed income, you don't have that kind of money to be paying in taxes. And look, I'm a senior citizen. I'm 77 years old, and my daughter went to Roosevelt School, but I still pay into Roosevelt School. I pay what maybe a parent that have a child in school pay. I don't think that should be. I mean, I know that's not you, but it should be something done with that situation. You know, it just really, it don't make any sense.
Sure. So, again, we deal solely with the value of property and appeals of assessed values. And the way I like to explain it is you have multiple taxing districts and taxing bodies. They all have a line item on your tax bill, and your property represents your piece of all of those pies of taxes that have to be paid. So if your value goes down, then you pay a smaller piece of all of the taxes due based upon those taxing bodies' levies. You're absolutely right. Well, let me speak a little bit to what you mentioned about Roosevelt. And by the way, you look great for 77 years old. I mean, super fantastic, actually. The reason that you still pay property taxes for schools, even if you don't have children, is that a component of the value of your property is its proximity to schools and the quality of the schools in your area. So even though you may not have a child there, that is relevant to the value of your property, because some, you know, there's some great school districts and people want to buy homes in those great school districts. So that's sort of the logic behind you still paying. I will tell you that the reason most of the western suburbs have higher taxes than like the city of Chicago for like properties has to do with business flight out of the communities. So businesses are assessed at 25%, properties are residential properties at 10%. When you have fewer businesses in the area, you have fewer people contributing to the tax basis. You have the same levies and the same amount of taxes due, so it ends up being spread over more residential units because you don't have commercial property sharing the load, or fewer properties sharing the load. The other challenge is that many of the western and southern suburbs, when they want to bring in new businesses, they provide them some tax incentives to lure them to the community. So you have grocery stores and big box stores and different businesses. But when those tax incentives expire, those businesses sometimes leave because they don't have the same profit margin because they now have a significant tax bill. So one thing some municipalities have started to do is they may provide a tax incentive, but in those contracts, they include a provision that prevents them from appealing. So they can't challenge the appeal. They can't appeal their taxes if they come to the village and they get the benefit of a tax incentive. So those types of things can help keep those entities that are contributing to your tax base, paying a little bit more than they otherwise might because they can't appeal. The city of Chicago has much lower local tax rate than Broadview or any of the other western or southern suburbs because they have a thriving downtown business community that contributes to paying the levies. The levies, as you know, the Broadview levy has to do with the police department, the fire department, the services that are provided. If they need new fire trucks, then their levy can go up, which again increases the amount of taxes that they have to collect. Same with the schools, if they need to be build new schools or, deal with other increases in expenditures, then you can see increased levies. I think they'll talk a little bit about that. There have been some municipalities of late that are pushing to hold the levies at bay. There are some statutory reasons that I'm sure they'll talk about as to why they increase the levies. But because, you can't, if you need to build a new school, you need to prepare for that years in advance, which may mean growing your reserves over time so that you collect a little bit more, and then you're ready to build a school 5 years from now. And there are percentage caps on what they can increase their levy by of 5%. So if they don't increase it by that 5%, they miss that opportunity to grow their reserves for other expenditures. I'm probably stepping on some toes here a little. But I've been doing this 20 years, so I got know a little bit about it. Yes, sir.
How old you have to be for that to start happening?
The exemptions and freezes are handled at the assessor's office, I believe. In my opinion, those are just patches. There's a bigger problem that needs to be addressed, probably at the legislative level, because people are really hurting. Nobody wants to vote for sales taxes. Sales taxes would help you, though, because you'd have every bag of potato chips and every bag of cookies paying a little bit more in sales tax so that they can get less revenue from homeowners. Homeowners are the most reliable taxpayers because people don't want to lose their homes, and that's their equity, and that's their, usually the most significant asset in your portfolio is your home. So, but I think now it's gotten to a breaking point where they're leaning on homeowners too much. You asked me a question about when you get the freeze. The freeze is at 65.
65.
And what's the current income level?
65,000. Got one more.
So you have to make 65,000 or less and be 65 years
65,000 age?
in income.
Oh,
60
income.
both. 65,000 in income or less and 65 years of age as of January of the given year.
Okay, now another thing, you talked about how things come into the village and lower the taxes. Now, a couple of years ago, we just had a senior building built on 17th Avenue there. And then on 11th Avenue, we just had another halfway house built there. How do those affect our taxes?
I can't speak specifically to those because I don't know who paid for them, but if they're paid for by the village, that may be an example of what I was saying. If you're going to build some property, you may build a center like that, you may need to increase the levy to get an influx of money to build the center, or to grow reserves to build it in year 2, 3, 4, 5.
But those are government-funded situations because it's for people who are, they said, unhoused and making transition to housing. And the senior places, that's a government situation, isn't it?
Well, I just don't know what government is funding it. Is it county? Is it state? Is it federal? Sometimes there's grant money provided. Sometimes it's funded by the village. So I can't speak to the specifics because I don't know those answers.
Well, they didn't tell us as taxpayers who funded it. So should we know that? The one on the senior house on 17th, right off Roller Road.
By the state of Illinois and Cook County.
Okay, so how does that affect our taxes?
That property don't affect your taxes. They pay property taxes on that unit, so just like. So on that property at the senior apartments, in their contract, they are paying property taxes on there. So it didn't impact your taxes, but they are paying taxes on that property. And that project was funded through Cook County and Illinois Department of Housing, IDA. The one on 11th Roosevelt, you're talking about the housing for supported living housing? That's a state-funded housing in partnership with Housing Forward. And they are paying property taxes on that as well.
Well, my taxes still went up.
Yeah, but it's not because of that.
Well, because of that, I thought it would go down.
No, that's residential. So Broadview, we're very fortunate. We have residential, a robust industrial, and a robust commercial entity. So we are very unique in the township, where we probably have some of the lowest taxes in the Proviso Township. So when we talk about these taxes, it's a very complicated system, and if it's the state of Illinois responsibility to fund public schools, we have to start there on how we unravel and how we unpackage that and create a policy that we can send to our legislators to get behind and champion behind to change the property tax code. It's not the school districts, it's not the municipalities, it's not the park district, it's not the libraries, it's at the state of Illinois, and it's embedded in a whole bunch of codes.
Yep.
And so if you are a property tax attorney, then you will probably understand it better than I do, because I don't understand it, but it's embedded in the state of Illinois property tax code statute. We have to unpackage that. And so that's why I wanted to have this conversation with you all so that we can better understand where our fight is and how we create policies and how you all get behind us. If you're a Broadview resident, you get behind me so that we can create the policy so that we can give a recommendation for legislation in the next General Assembly for them to consider our proposal, and they have to work internally across the board on both sides of the aisle to get this changed, because we have so many counties within the state of Illinois. Property taxes don't impact everybody in the state like they do us in Cook County.
That's right.
So it's complicated. And I understand the frustration, because I get frustrated too. And I've told the commissioner my frustration about my own property taxes, because I appeal every year and I get no relief. So
I don't
I'm
even
just saying
appeal
what it
because
is.
they'll say,
I don't know
when
who,
he hooked
I'm not
himself
pointing no
up.
fingers, I'm
I
just
don't
telling
even
you my
follow.
experience. So, but it is a complicated situation. So I want to bring back, and I'm going to go to you, and then we're going to let Commissioner take off, because I know you got a tight schedule. So when we talk about businesses and how we develop businesses in Broadview, if you see our shopping center, that was in the TIF district. So that TIF expired a couple of years ago, and we didn't reissue that TIF, but we gave incentives to build that shopping center. And now it's a very robust shopping center, and when we got the big box like Target, Home Depot, I think LA Fitness, Ashley, they all stayed. And now we getting a Chick-fil-A, so that's gonna generate some sales tax revenue for us. So when we look at how we govern ourselves and how we are fiscal responsible and how we transparent and how we develop, our focus is at the Roosevelt Road corridor, because we have some vacant storefronts. But the issue is, when you are, say you wanna own a small business, and you come and you say, I wanna rent out 1500 Roosevelt Road, and you look at the person that own the property got to pay property taxes. They paying at the 25%, not 10%. And so if you're saying property taxes in Cook County, I'm just guesstimating that it's about $47 a square foot. You times that by 1,500, that's your number. If you're the landlord, you want to make a profit, because you know the person that you put in there is going to make a profit. It's just compounded on compound and compound and stuff. And so how we get those vacant properties rented? We have to get creative in how we look at economic development on the Roosevelt Road corridor. And so working with our Commissioner David Upshaw and economic development and bringing projects online, these are the things that we do all the time so that we don't keep raising taxes. Because if you remember in 2008 when the market crashed, taxes was still up there, but guess what? When the market crashed, your value of your home went down, but did your taxes go down? That's a problem. And now it's trending. And so now that we see that it's trending, that this could possibly create another homeless problem because of property taxes, people may lose their home to property tax. The treasurer has said that she's gonna give some relief and put you on a payment plan. Well, that could work for some families that may have paid off their home. I'm not one of them, but I have a mortgage. So it's gonna be a shortage in a mortgage. If my mortgage go up $500, that can be very detrimental to me staying in my home, which could create a problem. So that's why I wanted to educate you all on what's really taking place, so that we can champion behind how we create a system that we all can live with. It's not gonna be a perfect system, and it may take us 5 or 10 years to get through it, because it's a lot of policy that's embedded in that property tax code. So we are taking the initiatives, me and some of the other mayors, we are taking some initiatives and putting that #1 on our platform so that we can get through some of this hard, because it's very complicated, am I right?
You're absolutely right.
So that's the issue. The frustration is there, and I get that. I get it, because I'm frustrated too. I have to pay taxes too. But we got to get to a solution, and so that's what this meeting is about.
Hi, I am Sandra McClendon. I am a product of District 88. I have been raised in Bellwood since '76, so I've seen the revolution of change that has taken place. Coming back home in 2013, one of the things that I was concerned about is that at that time, my parents were paying $5,000 to $6,000 in taxes a year. And I'm trying to figure out for Cook County, why is it for Cook County only? And especially this year, there is a reassessment of value, and people in the Proviso Township are paying more in taxes than DuPage County. So at that point, if I gotta pay more taxes than DuPage County, that's almost as if you want to drive me out. Now, I'm not gonna go with the underplay for the overplay, but everybody knows that this is prime property. We're right from downtown, 20 minutes. We're accessible to expressways. And so to Mayor Thompson's point, are we driving up taxes so we can drive people out? Because every dollar that goes up, that's somebody who's on a fixed income that cannot afford it. And then if what you spoke about the mortgage. So how is it that I can move to Lombard and pay $6,000 in taxes or $7,000 and have better accessibility to things around in the area and better schooling, but here in Proviso Township, I have people paying almost $10,000 in taxes.
Fritz Kagi.
Talking to the wrong person. Okay, so are you saying that's Fritz Kagi's plan? You don't know?
Well, I don't want to suggest that he has ill intent, but I think that he has a feeling about property values that is being manifested in his assessments. You know, like he feels that, like one thing he seems to be promoting is that businesses are, the value of business, of commercial property, because commercial property has businesses in it, but you aren't valuing the business, you're valuing the property. But he tends to want to value the business that's in the property, right? And he also seems to want to value the properties based upon what they're purchased for. And appraisal theory says that commercial property is as valuable as the income it generates. So you look at income and expenses with commercial property in terms of determining what taxes they should pay. And with residential properties, he seems to feel that they have gone up. So I think that's why you're seeing some significant increases. And he feels that he is, I think his job is to not only assess the value of the property, but to view it in context. Meaning that if I can't think your property is worth $150,000 today, and yesterday it was $50,000, and then increase your value by $100,000 in a year. The context matters, I think. And I think that's part of what he's missing in what he's doing. He's ignoring the impact and the context with which he is assessing properties. But there are pushes. Yesterday I was in, where were we, Dana? We were in Thornton 2 days ago. We were in Rich Township yesterday. We were in Broadview today. And it's the same discussion in the south and west suburbs because they've been hit hard. The south suburban mayors and managers, Mayor Thompson, are getting together to actually collectively go and have the issue addressed. Because I think right now it's at a breaking point where people need to demonstrate how upset they were. So one thing that was raised yesterday was marching down to Kagi's office with, white shirts saying cap Kagi on them, cap his increases, or, stop the raise, or whatever you want to say. And doing it collectively, I think, is important because you can't do, your individual messages get lost, and it's too much. There are too many taxing districts, so you can't go to all those meetings individually. You have to kind of send a collective message that resonates. And the south and west suburbs are huge voting blocks that will matter to a lot of people, there are some south suburban municipalities that are capping their levies, so, sometimes I want to get a new car and I can't get a new car. Or I want to get a new bathroom and I can't get a new bathroom. I got to wait because we gotta save and do some other things. The same thing has to apply to our taxing bodies. You know, they may need to wait sometimes. But
Well, I'm happy to say that we do a very good job budgeting in the village of Broadview on the municipal side. We very
yes,
strategic.
and I
in
don't
how
mean
we
to
do
attack
budgets.
anyone. I'm just saying that it's a problem that you know, if you got KEGI to stop and the levy, and if your value stayed the same and the levies went up, your taxes go up. So it's a multifaceted thing, and to see some stagnation, you need everybody to sort of hold back and stop for a minute. Now
But
you,
I think the sad part about it is that in Broadview Township, most of our residents are seniors, and most of them will not qualify for that freeze. Because you said $65,000 total.
Yeah.
That means if I'm married and I have a retirement fund and she has a retirement fund, if we're over that $65,000 threshold, we will not get the freeze.
correct.
And so.
And that's an
that affects-
outdated amount, I
right,
think,
that's an
65.
outdated amount. It affects a lot of people, and when you look at the tax breakdown that you do on your property, when we go into what these representatives are here tonight to talk about as far as schools, and I can speak to it. My school district that I went to some 40 years ago, they are the same schools that were built when my parents were born, 77 years ago. And the tax dollars from the residents in these districts that they pay an average of $1,100 to $1,200 on their tax bill to the district. Right now, education has become expensive, and we're spending more on that than a pupil per school. So at some point, like you say, maybe we need to become a collective voice, because either they're going to drive the people out, because at this point, if I was a parent and still had kids in this community, I would move to DuPage, because I got less taxes and I got better schools.
Let me mention one other thing. So the Board of Review can help you with next year's second installment tax bill. But the only real solution to help you with the current tax bill is what's called a certificate of error in Fritz Kegi's office. So he has acknowledged recently, what was it, Dana, 4,400 admitted errors that he says he made on, it wasn't exemptions, it was,
It was exemptions as well. People were missing their exemptions.
Right.
And also there were issues with the calculations of certain exemptions.
That's right.
As well. So you need to really pay attention to the tax calculator on your second installment tax bill to make sure that you're getting your full homeowner's
Right.
exemption amount or, other
sure.
issues.
So he has so generally, that 9 to 10 month process that I explained it takes that long so everybody can do their jobs and then check, double check, they say measure twice, cut once. And Fritz Kegi implemented a new computer system that has just upended the system. We had the tax bills out on time for about 10, 11 years. And then when he implemented the new system, he abandoned the legacy system. And a lot of that data was no longer available. So then the tax bills have been late the last 3 or 4 years. We got them back on time this year. And we meet monthly about schedules to make sure everybody has the time, and that you have tech review to review the values before you certify them. And your tax bills went out this year, and after they went out, he identified errors, missed exemptions, miscalculated exemptions. And he is going around telling you to file what's called certificates of error. That's where you say, you file it with his office and he acknowledges it, then he sends it, and it can lead to either an adjusted tax bill or a refund, okay, depending on when it's processed. He does them over, historically it's been over errors like square footage or classification errors. Now he's doing them over tax exemptions that are miscalculated or missed. I'm telling you that he can, meaning he has the authority to do them over valuations, meaning you can file a certificate of error saying my property went up by 50%, whatever it is, it's been overvalued, you should acknowledge this error and have a adjusted tax bill issued. I would file certificates of error if you think you've been overassessed as well.
So once again, this is taking advantage of the senior community, because how many seniors are going to know how to do that
You know, I always say, it's kind of like in my law profession, if people treated people right and acknowledged when they made errors, I'd have to find another profession in the law. You mean? But people don't acknowledge their errors. They make you prove malpractice. They make you prove negligence. And so I have a law practice. It's the same thing with the assessments. If he got the assessments right, there would be no need to appeal. If he got the values right. You know, because when you get your tax bill, you kind of know if the value he's assessed is about what your property's worth. You know, you kind of know what you paid, you kind of know what the neighbors are paying, or someone who bought in the area. But when you see it and it's wrong, you know it's wrong. And if he just invested in a system that got it right the first time, a lot of these expenses that you're seeing in government, I think, could be alleviated. I won't take up any more.
Now, I want to ask you one other thing. Why is it that the certificate of error, because I understand that, I feel mine's out all the time. I feel mine's out all the time. Why is it that it keep on happening?
Every year.
Why is it over and over? You know, because like I said, I have lived here for a long time, and one time that they owed me like $8,000 I had overpaid. You know, and I went on the computer and checked it again. I done overpaid again. And it was what, 5 years? 5 years I filled out the certificate of error. You know, I mean, why do they keep on doing this? And one other thing, why is it that you have to keep on every year? You have to keep on doing that senior freeze and all of that every year.
Well, I agree. I don't think I think they should come up with a system where it's not required every year. I mean, there's some practical reasons why you have to do it every year. You know, they want to make sure the senior's still there and somebody else isn't benefiting from the freeze. But
That information goes to the state. It goes every place. Goes
Yeah.
to the Social Security office. They don't keep sending the check.
yeah. Good
You're
point.
right about that. You're 100% right about that.
That's right. Yeah, it's not me, but I'm with you. I agree. But you know what he does? I'm gonna tell you. I've seen him go out and speak, and he doesn't accept responsibility for the errors. He always has an excuse. Like, I'll tell you what he says about our office, because we don't review all of his work. In order for us to look at the value of a property, you have to file an appeal. So he does a macro assessment. He says, you know, Broadview has 2 flats, bungalows. He doesn't go out and measure every house, and he generally determines the values, and then he assigns the values generally. And our office is created so that you can say, well, he got mine wrong. Here's an appeal. Look at my property to see if he got it wrong. So we have jurisdiction only over the properties that file an appeal with us. I tell you should do it every year because we're seeing so many errors. Also, commercial properties do it every year. But what he says about us is that we reduce commercial property values, and he says that's why your taxes are too high. First of all, it's about 14% or so of all the properties in Cook County that even file with our office. So it's a drop in the bucket in terms of the number of properties. Not a drop in the bucket, but it's nowhere near what he's suggesting. Secondly, just like he's increasing residential properties too much, he's doing the same thing to commercial properties. A perfect example that was in the news was when the Bears bought the Arlington Heights facility. They bought tore down old racetrack and land so they could build a stadium. So they paid money because it was a contiguous group of properties that they could build a stadium on, but there is no stadium yet. So that's an example of you paying money probably more than the property is worth because what you're trying to do with the property. It's kind of like if you bought the lot next to you is worth a little more to you because it's next to you, right? Then maybe the lot is actually really worth. Same thing with that type of properties. And he did what you call chase sales. He just looked at the sales price and charged them, assessed it at the sales price, like a couple $1 million left. I think they paid 197 million. And he assessed it at like 195 million. And Arlington Heights said it was worth like 120 million. They were disputing his assessed value, even though they got tax revenue off of it. So he just is, he's hurting everybody. And he will misrepresent to you what we do with businesses. He'll raise a business, you know, their assessed value by $10 million. They appeal with us. We may reduce it by 5, so they still got a $5 million increase. And he'll say, you know, the Board of Review reduced the taxes by $5 million. No, they got a $5 million bump. We just didn't give them the $10 million that you overassessed them. So we do give commercial properties reductions when they present evidence. We give residential properties reductions when they present evidence. And he tries to vilify what we're doing and misrepresent that we're the reason that he raised your assessed values. It's just dishonest.
Right. Now, I mean, I come to every one of the property taxes. I hear the same thing, and then my taxes go. If I should come here, like the next 3 years, I'm not surprised if I hear the same thing. So, in conclusion, Mr. Rogers, it seems as a hopeless situation. What can we do? I mean, as residents.
Yeah, I kind of mentioned earlier that I think a collective effort with south and west suburbs in particular would command a response. They need to do a deep dive into a better way of funding government beyond the backs of homeowners and property owners. It needs to be spread over a much larger group than just homeowners and property owners. You know, yes, you're the most reliable, or we're the most reliable, but we have a breaking point as well. And we've reached the breaking point, I think. So now I think is a critical time because, you know, of the values that are being set. It's just sort of a perfect storm, I think, to get some relief if you really collectively campaign for some change. And again, it needs to be, you know, when I walk in the room and I see everybody with pink shirts, and I know everybody with pink shirts is about freezing levies, then that sends a strong message that we need to be freezing levies, because everybody in this room is sending a message. You may not be able to articulate it, but I can see your position just by what the hat or the shirt or whatever you got on, and just have a spokesperson, you know, saying what needs to be said. I mean, what I'm saying is not popular to taxing districts, I'm sure, but it's just a reality. Yeah. Thank you for hearing me out. We always come to Broadview and do property tax appeal forums. We'll continue to do that. We are limited, you know, again, when he raises everybody, the law only allows us to reduce in uniform with other properties, so that's a limitation we have. But we'll look at appraisals, even if they're older appraisals. If you have a 3-year-old appraisal, we'll just adjust the value based upon, you know, the current year as best we can. We just try to give you as much relief as we can and consider any and everything you submit that you think affects your value. Okay? All right, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner, for coming out to Broadview this evening and spending some time with us. We're going to turn it right over to our Finance Director for the Village of Broadview. But I do want to add, like, some things to speak to Commissioner Rogers when we're looking at the valuation methods. 3 things how they look at value properties. They look at sales comparison approach, which is comparing the properties to similar properties that have recently sold. The cost approach, the estimating the cost to replace the property minus depreciation, and the income approach for income producing properties, calculating the value based on income it generates. They also ask, we have to send over, like when you're doing home remodeling projects and those types of things, we send over like everybody that pulls out, that pull permits. We send that to the county, because if you remodel, say you may have an addition on your home, that's when they come out and assess, that's going to get assessed at because of the permits that's being pulled. So they look at a lot of different methods on how they look at valuation of property, but I always ask the question, how can you put a value on a property? I want to know what that number is, because how do I know? I mean, they say my house is valued at $260,000. Where did that number come from? So that's where I'm always asking that question, like, how do you come up? Because the value is numeric, and nobody can explain that. But when you look at how they look at the comparisons with valuations, permits that's being pulled, additions that's being added, and then when you get reassessed, your property go up. So it's a complicated system. So Tom?
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
I'm going to try to fly through here because I don't want to keep us here till 10 o'clock tonight. And unfortunately, for these 10 slides, I could sit up here and talk 2 to 3 hours on them. But I'm going to skip that and just try to go through here. Okay, so when it comes to your tax bill, it's a combination of a bunch of different taxing agencies, bodies, whatever you want to refer to them as. In Broadview, these, oops, we went right to page 3. Let's go to page 2. These entities are on everybody in town. So your Cook County related levies, your Proviso Township levy, the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District, and for those that, I don't know if you can read it or not, I've got lots of copies back there if you want to take home. I don't want to go through and just read every one of them. I just want to quickly say, these guys are on all of our bills. There's another group of taxing entities that are the school districts and high school districts. And depending on which part of town you live in, you will be paying towards their tax levy. So I live in the Beverly section down here. My school district is Comarec and RB High School. Totally different than someone that lives over in Harvester or someone lives up here on the Gold Coast. So there are actually 6 different combinations. They're called tax codes. If you ever go to the website, there's a tax code on your bill that will tell you which, well, your bill will actually tell you right on there which one of these districts you're paying into. This is probably really small, and that's why I printed it all out. This is 10 years of historic numbers, and it's even smaller on my screen, of the rates for each one of these districts. And at the bottom, I've summarized the tax codes. And so that's basically saying what everybody's paying towards, and then your combination of grade school, high school. Now, what's interesting here, if you look at the bottom here, it is actually the tax rate has went down over the last 10 years. And you're all going to look at me and go, this guy's nuts. But I'm going to explain this to you. When you look across here, that is the rate is not assigned, it's calculated. And the hardest thing for me to get over is everybody thinks the same way. There's a rate I'm going to pay, they're going to take it times my assessed value, that's what we're going to pay. So on my next slide here, I broke out what those 6 different tax codes in Broadview are. And if you can see, the composite tax rates, depending on what section of town you're in, they range from 9% if you're on the Gold Coast up here to 11% if you're over here in the Hollywood area around Lindop. So there's a big fluctuation in the rates in the town. Why is that? Well, as I was just saying, most people assume it's that rate times your assessed value. But that's not how that rate's figured. That rate is your aggregate tax levy. So they take the levies of all of those people, and then they divide it up based upon the assessed value. So it's really your assessed value is determining what your slice of the pie is. If everybody went up exactly the same amount, there would be no change. The aggregate tax levies is the actual money part. And that is, in Illinois, It's governed by PTEL. So there's a property tax extension limit law, which says we can't raise your taxes more than the CPI. And then they publish the CPI every year. So let's say it's and it's no more than 5%, because the last couple of years inflation has been so bad, they could have been even bigger, but they're capped in Illinois at 5%. So we can only levy taxes for last year 5% more than we did for the year before that. So there is a cap on what the money side. The assessed evaluation kind of puts us against each other. If we're all on the same thing and my house doubles in value, your share of the pie goes down. If I get my assessed evaluation lowered, your share of the pie goes up. It's a net zero-sum game. And he's not the person to ask. I'm curious on why so many people are going up this year. It just, something doesn't seem right to me, but I can't put my finger on what it would be. Does anybody have any questions on how that tax rate is? I got all these school people here. What's it called when you divide one number by, is that a quotient? Yeah, it's a quotient, okay. The tax rate's a quotient. It's the result of two other things. It's not something that's being used to figure out how much money you owe. What's really driving how much money you owe is the combined tax levies, and then what your share of that pie. Yes, sir.
Tom, can you read for us real quick the 6 different areas, which tax code is each area that it owns?
Sure.
Start from 31039.
Okay, that is Lindop and Proviso. That's Hollywood. District 92.5 is basically that stretch of Gardner Road up to between the railroad tracks and Gardner. I don't think we got a name for it. But it's just that one stretch. The school line district is the railroad tracks, not Gardner Road. So that industrial part over there is actually in Westchester School District. And that's 92.5, which is 40. And the mayor gave me a piece of information the other day that I thought was interesting, because I was thinking, well, maybe when they were doing this, they were trying to take industrial parts to help out other districts out of town. This was done so long ago, that was probably fields over there, and it just so happened to develop into what it is today. So I don't know why that, I don't know why that was. 41 is, it's mainly the Gold Coast. It also goes all the way to Gardner, up above Roosevelt. And 42, you know, that's the Bellwood one. I think that's also the Gold Coast. No, you know what, I'm not sure on that one, Kevin. It's,
So for, if you got individual areas, 6 times after the fact, because if we look at the way that they look now, you know, we have very little time.
Yeah.
The presentation, so if you guys have questions, you can try to answer your questions or get an understanding of what's taking place. But if you have individual area,
It's-
effectively just, see time, and then
Yeah,
talk about your specific area.
let's save the questions to the end. That way I won't keep you here until, you know, the late show's on. Okay, so that's it. This is an important thing. Most people don't understand what they're paying. They think they're getting a rate times their assessed value. That change in assessed value, whether it goes up and down, it could go up in your taxes and go down if everybody else's went up higher. So it's complicated to understand. That's the property tax code is too complicated. That's the real answer. What I did here, I live in the 31094, and I showed over the last 10 years. From 2014 to 2023, the rate has increased 22% on my house. Works out about 2.5% a year, which kind of makes sense because we had a lot of years in there where the CPI was 1.5, and then just recently it went up to 5. The composite tax rate by code one right next to it, that is all 6 of the Broadview tax codes. And you can see over the last 10 years, they've all went up, but none of them have really went up much differently than mine, the tax code I live in. And this is what happens to the money that you send in. So you pay your tax bill. And I've got it broken out by those tax codes. So essentially, the bottom, the blue part, that's what the Village of Broadview is getting. And I have this written down. So anywhere from 19 to 20 cents of the dollar is coming to Broadview. Then we also have the Park District, the Library District, the Water Reclamation District, and then the big one is the school districts. And they range from 52 to, I believe it was 63%. So the biggest chunk of our tax dollars is going to the school districts. And there's some the other districts are on there. It's on the chart, it's on the handout. So the money that is paid in when you send your check in, 18 cents of it, 18 to 22 cents comes here each dollar you send in. You know, each one of these places is getting a portion of that money. It's just not all going to Broadview, because a lot of people come to me wanting to know what we're doing with all the extra money, and I'm like, our property taxes went up by CPI. That's what our increase was. Now, there are some other things that can go around the PTEL law. It's more complicated than we want to go into here, but I just wanted to show each resident, no matter which section you are, where your money's going. And in the biggest case, it's going to the school districts, and that's the people that are here represented here tonight. I don't think anyone cares about the Des Plaines Valley Mosquito Tax District. It's so small, it doesn't even show up on the graph. Okay. The other thing the mayor asked me to do is show how the property tax plays into the Village of Broadview's operations. And I'm only looking at our general government operations. I'm not looking at water, I'm not looking at garbage. This is the everyday business of the village. So the property taxes that we get account for about 35% of our annual revenue. Sales taxes, about 22%. Intergovernmental transfers, about 19%. And those are taxes that are paid to the state and allocated to us based upon population in most cases. And the last one were charges for services. And as I was saying, this is only our governmental services. This doesn't talk about water, garbage, stuff like this. This is money that our fire department brings in through ambulance fees, and fire suppression contracts. So the other thing that falls into that is towing and storage, but it's such a small part, you could almost say the whole 12% is coming in from the fire department. And then there's a whole other group of other smaller things, but those 4 are making up, I think I said 88% of the total revenue, with property taxes representing about 55%. So what do we do with that money? That's the next slide. So I don't know if I mentioned it on the previous slide. For fiscal 24, in total revenues, we brought in $23.4 million. Total expenses for last year were $21,138, which means we came in with about a $2.3 million surplus. And that's planned because, and again, I don't want to stay here all night. There is a reason we want to build up fund balances, because when interest rates go down, we're going to be able to tackle some of the problems that we just can't do anything about today, mainly pension related. But in all those expenses, and you can see them handed out, there's a couple, two or three that make it four, that are taking most of our money, not only our property tax money, but all the additional money. The big one is personnel and, personnel and pensions. I got pensions separately. Personnel and their benefits alone are $8.7 million for the village. So we require their salaries, health insurance, vision insurance, dental insurance, and life insurance. It's $8.7 million. Our whole property tax was only $8.2 million. So we're $500,000 we got to come up just to keep the people doing this in services, and then we got to make enough money elsewhere to do everything else we do. That's one way to look at it. The other way that I kind of prefer is there's a couple things you got to pay. You got to pay your debt service, and you got to pay your pension obligations. In that case, that alone is going to almost eat up all of the property tax. I think what the amount is, 2.3 million is left over to do everything else after you've done bond service and your pension payments. So property taxes is important to us because it's 35% of our revenue, but it's not enough to do the things that we have to get done in the village. And it's in many ways, Broadview's lucky. Whoever made that decision in '93 to do that TIF over here with Harvester plant down, today that is generating millions of dollars of sales tax. You know, there's things that have happened in this town many years before where they took the industrial, commercial, residential approach at developing the town. So over 70% of our property taxes are coming from our industrial and commercial people. The residents are paying around 30% of the property taxes. So that isn't the case in other towns. So that's why I say we're lucky. We have a very good mix of residential, commercial, and industrial. And we have, in the commercial, we have businesses that produce lots of sales tax income for us. Okay, so I probably went a couple minutes longer than I should have. Are there any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I do have one. If you can go back to the breakout of where your taxes go, I just want to make sure I'm understanding the graph correctly. So I'm just going to use tax code 31039, and it said 19.46%. Are you stating that that is just for the village of Broadview, or are you
Yes, well,
are you calculating in the Broadview Park District, the Broadview Library District?
that's everybody.
That's it. So all.
Yeah, that's everybody. I'm trying, that's,
19.46%.
yeah. Trying to figure out where that slide is. That's the graph, that one, okay. Yeah, that's for everybody. So basically, that is taking the total taxes levied and breaking it apart by the percentages of the total.
So the Park District, the library.
Everybody's is
all of that
in
came
there.
to
Right.
19.46% for Broadview?
No, the 19.46 is just the Village of Broadview.
Just the village of Broadview?
Right,
So
the one right above it is the Park District.
Okay,
The green one is the Library District. The purple one is combined. That's Cook County, and there would have been so many different colors here. Cook County,
it would have been interesting to get the total percentage for Broadview, the Broadview Park District, and also the Library District, to give a good comparison to what you say is being funded to the schools.
So when I get the analysis, because I broke it out by percentages. And so for the Village of Broadview, for the residents, the Village of Broadview for our taxes is 1.88%. Broadview Park District is 0.294%. Broadview Public Library is 0.321%. District 92 is 4.264%. District 89 is 2.635%. District 94 is 2.534%. District 88 did not have a specific rate provided because of the local tax information, so we have to get that from District 88. to get that tax rate, and District 209 is 2.046, and District 209 is 2.046, and the high school District 208 is 2.273%. So for District 88, in the district that you live in, you're gonna have to go to the local school to get that tax rate.
Okay, so Mayor Thompson, can I ask you a question? The percentages for the schools, is that a combination of District 88 and 209, or is that just District 88?
No, that would be District 88. So each district, we broke it out by each district on this rate. But what I got, when I did the percentages, I broke it out by the district. He broke it out by the district as well. I didn't get a calculation from 88,
know.
but Dr. Stockton will be able to tell you
Yeah,
what your
I can
percentage
give
is.
that percentage, which is
And it would be
very, very
different for
small.
each community
Yeah, we
because
are
Broadview
small.
is very small.
We
For
got
Bellwood,
a real small portion
Right.
of Broadview. But it's not even 5%. It's right at 5%, so it's real small, the amount that we pay, because it's only about 240 residents, and we only got about 50 students. So our portion in Broadview is, most of our levy comes from Bellwood.
right.
So
And
we get a little bit from Bellwood, a little bit from Melrose. We get 5% from Broadview. That's what we levy. That's not necessarily what we get. So it's real small from
But that's why I invited all of
Yeah.
the school districts to come, because Broadview have all of these different
Right.
taxes. But if you go to Bellwood, they'll be able to break it out for the
Right.
village of Bellwood,
Right.
because most of the taxes for education for District 88 comes from the village of Bellwood, not
Right, yeah.
Broadview.
Yeah, so-
Definitely. Thank you, Mayor.
So,
Yep.
if you guys, on the fourth page, is the one that's property taxes, all just direct and overlapping governments. The rate for 2023 for each one of the districts is there. Like Bellwood was
4.3.
4.3.
Yep. Which is
But-
based off of EAV. Exactly.
But you might be getting 5% that's coming from Broadview, the
Ex-
other 95%.
Exactly. It's coming from everybody else.
It's not the, you're
It's
targeting
not,
Broadview 5%,
exactly.
it's only the
Exactly. It's a
4.3.
misnomer when you look at
Right.
it. Like you said, it's hard to explain that EAV scenario, well, formula, because you're right.
you're
It's, the rate is 4.3, but we only get 5% from our total levy from Broadview.
Yeah.
Yeah. 95% come from, we have 6 communities in Bellwood School District 88, and a lot of people don't know that. Broadview is just one of them, but we have Melrose Park, Stone Park, Bellwood, Broadview, Maywood, and Hillside. Yep.
So you gotta go to 6 more,
Yep,
5 more
6.
meetings? Okay. All right, are
Yep.
there any other questions? All right. So my last slide was questions for me, but does anybody want to present anything at this point? Or do we just want to take questions overall?
I would say we could take questions.
Yeah.
Good evening.
So you have us here. Are there any questions that we might be able to help
So
you with?
Director Hood, I do have one comment, because I was talking to a resident that we actually made a copy of her tax bill. I've got a copy. Can you see that? And so she lives in District 88 School District, but on her tax bill, and this is the first time that I've seen this, it's got the TIF Village of Broadview, TIF Village of Bellwood, Addison Creek, A 2014. And I don't know what that is, so we're gonna look into that. I may have to call over to Mayor Harvey to ask him about that, because this is the first time that I've seen it, but what was so profound to me is in tax year 22, it's a public record. 2022 was $639.96. 2023 tax was $3,235.90.
For that
which-
one item?
For that one item, which it was
Something's wrong there.
$2,595.94
appeal
more.
that.
So we're gonna investigate and look into that, and then we'll follow up with you, okay?
And I say appeal it.
And you,
Yeah.
You probably can't call Mayor Harvey, but, that TIF is for the Addison Creek. Right. So what happened is that, and I may be misspeaking, but when they came in and reassessed everybody's home values, the home values went up. Therefore, when your home values go up, you get taxed a more taxing body, and that's where that increase came from the difference of 2022 to 2023.
well, what's
Yeah.
weird though is you live between 21st and 25th. You live in Broadview. Your property's not in the Bellwood TIF.
No, I live in Bellwood. I live on the other side.
Oh, okay, okay. I thought you were already, yeah, so that, yes.
She just wondering.
Okay, that's
So I'm
what I.
gonna refer you, I mean, I don't mind in looking into it, but I'm gonna refer you back to your village. Call Mayor Harvey. And yeah, he may be able to give you some answers, but I still wanna know just for my own knowledge of why this, because this was the first time that I've seen that. A huge increase.
I can tell most of you. I've lived here in Broadview for a long time. I've been to a lot of these meetings. You too. I went to the one over here, Broadview Church, years ago. They're not gonna go down, y'all. I'm telling you, they're not going down. The only thing that you can do is do what Roger said.
Yep.
And fill out that complaint, do that work, and get your money back. That's all you can do. Nothing goes down. I'm telling you. Did your insurance go up? House insurance go up? Car insurance go up? I'm telling you, nothing's going back down. A lot of people can talk all you want.
The only,
You can meet
So-
all you want. Nothing is going
So
down.
I will agree with
It's
that.
going up.
I will agree with that it will never go back down. But what I will also say is that it's policy that we have to get behind to look at legislation to address the policy as it relates to the codes. And it's very complicated, but it takes work. And it's not something that happens. This is over a period of time. If you go back to 2008, when we had the market crash, when that market crashed, a lot of people lost their homes. Did your property tax change when your assessed value went down because of the crash? No, it stayed the same. So when you talk about systemic racism, and people just don't want to have these real transparent conversations when it comes to these issues, it's a history in America that's very problematic, but I think sometimes we as elected officials get afraid to lose the position because of the complexity of things that come up. You can't be afraid to speak to the history of the past and how we changed it moving forward. It may be something that may not happen in my tenure as the mayor here in the village of Broadview, but if I'm planting the seed now to educate you, to inform you how you can get behind me to help with policy change, because that's what I'm real big on, the legislation. Policy is what changes things. And when people don't follow the policy, this is the mess you get a wreck. And now we got to stop the bleed in some way. It's not going to happen overnight. So like Commissioner Rogers said, you know, getting behind a group of people to make, we are more powerful in numbers versus then continue to have educational seminars like this, town hall meetings, having the elected bodies come out to talk about what the differences are between the assessor office, board of review, local government, our school districts, our park districts, and all of that. We have to look at the policy. You have to look at the legislation, and most people don't understand the statutes. So I'm not an attorney, but I can read and I can interpret and I can ask a lot of questions. And that's what I've been doing around this topic of property taxes, because I'm looking at the historical systemic racism that's played a card in America. And when you look at the group of people that's being most impacted by these increases are in Black and Hispanic communities out here in our township, predominantly African American, heavily growing population of Hispanics. And when you look at the south suburbs, it's the same situation. The writing is on the wall for us to get behind something and to put something in place that we can present in an educated, in a professional manner, and then we go together as a group to tell our story. My position here is to tell our story for Broadview to make a change, but I can't fight by myself. I'm one person. I need all 8,000 residents that's paying property taxes in the village of Broadview to get behind us, to help us with this, and continue to have these dialogues and conversations and be able to say, okay, but this is some of the things that we can address in Broadview, and do we need to change this, or how can we rework this and work with a group of professionals like we're working with our IML, our Illinois Municipal League. They helping us with the legislation on the property, and I was just told, the CEO stopped in Broadview today, and he said that they are gonna take a proactive approach to look into this policy, because it is embedded that we have to help the legislators. We had one legislator tell us at one of our, the Illinois Mayor's Black Caucus, tell us that if we wrote the policy, they would introduce the bill. So guess what we said we gonna do? We gonna write the policy, and that's why I'm here tonight, to get input from you all on what that really looked like so we can shape it. So it's not just me shaping policy, it's us collectively together shaping the policy, working with our local school districts, because they know what their needs are.
Yep.
And I can tell you, How often do I come to District 209 board meetings?
I would say pretty often lately, yes.
I'm heavily engaged in our public school system because I believe in a public education. I can tell you District 92 is doing some amazing work with those young people. When you look at the test scores in ISB, you may not be able to tell that based off a test score, but if you go into the schools and see what these teachers and these administrators are doing, they're doing the work. I can attest to what District 88 is doing in the district with Dr. Stockton, with all of these programs that they have. They're doing the work.
Yeah.
But it's hard when you have parental side and the school side, and we try to put all of these initiatives in place to raise student achievement. We, as taxpayers that don't have children in the school, I don't have kids in the school anymore. But I'm very embedded in making sure that they have a quality education so that they can come back and live in the community that raised them. District 89, with under Dr. Hassan, she's coming back to the district. She has been heavily involved in student education, so they're doing the work. When you look at the test scores, it don't reflect that. But if you talk to the kids and the families that's engaged, you'll be able to know that they're doing the work, but it's community. It takes all of us, and it takes all of us to shape policy. We can't do it by ourselves. Just because we're elected don't mean we're the smartest one in the toolbox. We're elected. We're here to serve, but we're here to serve collectively together, get input, whether it's good, bad, or indifference. You don't have to like me, but I'm the mayor for everybody. And I'm asking for help as it relates to this issue because it's people in the room that's very concerned about what this look like. We have to do it together.
Amen.
I can't do it by myself.
Amen.
The administrators at the schools, they can't do it by themselves. It's community, parents. It takes all of us to do this work. And so putting initiatives in place and looking at policy and what that look like, who want to help me with the policy?
Yeah.
So Lily, see all these hands, get their phone numbers.
That's right.
Madam Mayor, you just said you don't have to like me. I think you are very attractive.
Oh, thank you. Ooh. I'm gonna make sure I call you.
I have one more question.
Yes, sir.
Yes, I noticed right through this meeting, nothing was mentioned about the federal government. What impact does the federal government have on our property taxes?
So,
I mean, you got the state,
so, so we live in a very complicated America. And the concerns that I have that I see that impact local government is that we don't get people engaged in the electoral process. We keep re-electing the same people because we like you, or we know you, or you had a big community event and you're doing all of these great things. We don't get into the real work. The real work is holding people accountable. In Broadview, I ask all of you all to hold me accountable. I hold myself accountable first, because I know God is watching. So that's number one. But it takes intentional leadership that want to see a difference change in people's lives. It don't happen overnight. This is a historical problem that we had over a period of time. And if you look at before Civil Rights and the Fair Housing Act, and you look at all of these policies that have embedded with systemic racism, and you seeing the writing is on the wall for us through this property tax. And I don't know why we're not looking at it from a lens of equity or a lens from systemic racism, because the impact that's happening in our state is predominantly happening in Black and Hispanic communities when it comes to property taxes.
Yep.
We have to look at the policy. We have to break it down. We have to unravel it so that we can repackage it. But we elect our state officials. They need our help too. They look at it from a lens that they serve a district, and we got two phenomenal leaders in our district. We got the Speaker of the House, Chris Welch. We have Kimberly Ledford, our majority leader in the Senate. We have two powerhouses in our district. We're very fortunate to have that. But they need our help too, because just think of all of the issues that we have to deal with, not just property taxes. We got pension issues, reforms. We got a whole bunch of stuff that's a system that's impacting people's lives. We got a homeless population that I'm very passionate about. Nobody should not be without shelter. That makes no sense to me that we can house other people, but the people that lived here are veterans, are suffering. That's problematic. But it takes us to do the work. Most people don't want to do the work. They just want to complain about the taxes is too high. They don't want to help, and they want to tell us what we're not doing. They never look at the good that we are doing to make a difference in everyday lives. And so we just got to look at it from a different lens. So that's why I wanted to host this, to make it educational and not point the fingers of who getting the most money, who getting lesser than, but just getting a real understanding of what it is that we're up against. And it takes community to make a difference. It takes us to engage in our local elections, whether it's on the federal, county, state. We have to push that agenda, because when we show up in numbers at the ballot box, they know we're paying attention, and now we have true accountability for those that we put in the seats. But we have some great leaders. We really do. And when it comes to funding, like those that live in Bellwood, Maywood, Broadview, or Proviso Township, because this is their district, when it comes to the funding, they have been amazing to us. Like, we are getting money to do a lot of stuff that if we didn't get those grants from the state of Illinois, that we would not be able to do a lot of things. We're very fortunate when it comes to flood with Cook County, the partnership and relationship that we have there, where we offer to, we got $500,000 from Cook County to help mitigate flooding in residential homes. If we wouldn't have got that, we wouldn't have been able to do a lot of the work to help residents keep their homes and be able to have relief when we get them heavy rains, and not be like, oh Lord, what's gonna happen now? So we are getting the funding, we're getting the revenue, we are investing the monies that we get. Probably since I've been in office, we've probably gotten close to how many millions of dollars?
15, 20?
15 to $20 million just for Broadview. And we're very small, but we're getting a lot of federal grants. We might have to hire more people to help us with them, because we're getting grants on a rapid pace to do a lot of good work for the village of Broadview. We're getting ready to get a new paramedic truck, a fire engine. We're investing our money into the right areas. We're not relying on government to take care of us, even though we want them to help us, but we make good financial decisions for the future, not for today. So that's just how we manage ourselves. But this property tax, we got to get intentional about the work. So everybody keep your hands up, because you got to get your phone number, because we're going to have some roundtables on how we look at the tax code. They're going to help me pull out the property tax code, because you have the state statute and you have Cook County that have stuff that's embedded into the state statute legislative-wise. So we got to unlayer that. We got to unpackage it to understand it. Once we pull it out and we can put it in buckets, then we can say what we really want and what we're fighting for. But just to show up to, march and protest and all of that, I like to be intentional. Like, here go my packet. Anytime I ask for money for the village of Broadview, I go with a packet. I tell them what's in the packet. I leave it on their desk, and then I know, voila, God has an eye on Broadview. We get the money. So we like to be intentional on how we articulate our story. This is our story to tell. It's not the village of Bellwood's story. It's not the village of Maywood's story. This is the village of Broadview story. And that's why I wanted to do it this way, to let those that's in the other taxing bodies to be able to answer any questions that you may have, because the first thing, when I looked at the tax bill, it said where your money goes. And I came running to Tom. I said, Tom, we got to talk about this, because I'm looking at where my money go. Okay, Linda, how you spending my money at this school? Like teacher salaries, administration salaries, maintenance, capital improvements for the school. Kids want to be in a good, safe, environmental safe building. Comaric just did a rehab, where they did a renovation, and they did it through a referendum. When they did that school building, the taxes over there went up almost 3 times in this tax season. And that building was built in 1931. So just picture this. We don't have kids in the district. I don't pay taxes over there, but I have compassion for kids, and they learning. Every child should have an opportunity to learn, regardless of whatever. That building was built in 1931. The students now, we up in the 21st century. School built in 1931 was not ADA compliant. It was taking students that was wheelchair bound, 12 minutes of losing instructional time of learning to get to a class. Is that right? It's not. So over a period of time, and I challenge the schools with this, even with Lindop and Dr. Stockton, y'all were looking at the buildings that's outdated and stuff like that. It's just poor maintenance over a period of time. Put a plan in place.
That's right.
Put a plan in place so that you can cast a vision on how to spend the money in the future. So in 10 years, the HVAC gonna go out. So we need to put money in the bucket over here for the 10-year future and add 20% on it because costs of goods are going up. That's how we budget here in the village of Broadview, how we keep our capital buildings together. We budget for the future for HVAC systems, plumbing, electrical, equipment upgrades, how we look at recycling police squad cars, and we actually have a plan. So we know what year we're gonna have this big expense.
Yep.
We have to get intentional about the finances and be responsible. And a lot of times over a course of year, it's been mismanagement of funding. When you look at the pensions, if in the village of Broadview, our pension every year is $4.2 million just for fire and police. If they would have been paying pensions like they were supposed to in a timely manner, we would be paying about $300,000. What could we do with the rest of the $1 million we would have? It's mismanagement from the past, so we are actually carrying a load that we didn't create.
Yes.
And that's the same thing that's happening with the property taxes. It's something that's created that we didn't create, but it's on my watch. So I'm real intentional on what that looked like for the village of Broadview. I live here. And pretty soon, according to the village ordinance, at age 55, I'm gonna be a senior. So I got a lot of concerns, because I'm gonna be on a fixed income. So I understand. But also, when those that get the senior exemptions or the veterans exemptions, you get an exemption, and guess what happened? The money that you're not paying gotta go somewhere. Where do it go? So it comes to me, I have to pick up that burden. I don't have a problem with doing that because those veterans served our country. But the reality of it is, do America take care of our veterans like they should? You see what I'm saying? So it's like embedded of a system that's just not practical in today's time. And with technology and all these other things, we have to get real intentional on the language that we use, how we help our legislators legislate and create policy. But we should have a seat at the table to do that, and that's what I ask them to do, is just give us a seat at the table before you make a decision that impact our everyday lives. We're local government. We touch the people every day. We touch them before they do. But they make decisions for us. Broadview is a non-home rule community. We just can't implement taxes, sales tax. We have to get permission from the residents to do it. But when you implement sales tax, and I'm gonna give you an example. You heard of the grocery sales tax? And so the grocery sales tax, that tax goes away for the village of Broadview. That's gonna cost us $275,000 a year. The state of Illinois don't have to pay nothing. The state, that went to the state of Illinois, and they just send it back to municipalities, but they don't want to do that no more. But if we enforce that sales tax, guess what happened? It go to the state, and then we still have to pay 1% on that money to get it back. Make it make sense. So that's what I'm saying. When we creating laws and stuff, we have to really be intentional. I am a legislative reviewer of all the policies that impact the village of Broadview. And I sit on every legislative committee, on every committee that I have, because I want Broadview to have a seat at the table when we have these complex issues, because it's heavy. It's more than I even imagine. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question about the complaint form. In the middle of the form, it says, do you plan to submit additional evidence? And I'm just curious, is that additional evidence, what is that additional evidence?
So that would be like,
Is it comparable?
yeah, it's comps.
Or is it homes that have sold? And how do we go about finding that to attach it to this form?
But if you all have any other questions for the schools, they're here to address their issues that they have. But this is really, I just wanted to bring us all in the same room and get some support so that you all can help. I need help.
So a couple things. Number one, the medium price of homes being listed in the village of Broadview is $280,000. The sales price on average is $250,000. We have approximately 21 properties available for sale right now. So that's just the FYI. Number two, real life story. My mother's taxes, she's 96, was $6,000. As the mayor said, you have to be deliberate. Fill out that certificate of error and appeal. At 96, she's not going to Proviso Township over in Hillside. But the lady was nice enough for me, her son, to go over there and bring her ID, bring the appraisal of her home. 'Cause she lives in Broadview, and they didn't write her a check, but she got a $4,500 credit. So Mr. Rogers was telling you what to do. You got to do it. You have to do it. Appeal, certificate of error. And the mayor always, pleasure to work for Mayor Katrina Thompson. The mayor always talks about documents and the data. She wants to know the data. She don't want to know what I'm thinking. She wants the data. She wants the numbers, the metrics. If each one of you all are appealing, each one of you all have a certificate of error, that's data being collected, and somebody's going to look at this and say, wait, if we got 100 people paying taxes and their tax bill is all wrong, and we got 90 people or 95 people appealing and applying with a certificate of error, something's wrong. We got to look at this thing. The numbers speak for themselves. So to answer your question, ma'am, appraisals, information, realtor.com is where I look at to find out homes that have sold. I'm addressing Broadview only, and how many properties are being listed, and you can take that data. That's what I did. I just took it over there. The lady was nice enough. I showed her my ID, showed her that I was my mother's son, and they took care of it. They didn't cut her a check, but she got a credit. I'm just being honest. Yeah, I want a check too.
And I will say this, when you're looking at the comps on residential, if you're near the Roosevelt Road corridor, look at the vacant commercial buildings that's vacant as well, because that plays a role into all of this. Because they pay the most property tax, so if it's vacant, that's an assessment. And they assess properties, vacant properties, different from occupied.
I'm sorry, Ms. Upshaw, can you repeat realtor.com and put the appraisal and what else did you say?
Realtor.com. Realtor.com has a list of properties that are on the market, and you can also say properties that are sold. Just put in the zip code, it'll give you that. 60155 and 60153. And then any information that you may have about your home. Maybe an insurance policy, maybe anything.
Okay, go ahead.
IDs, my home is 96. I don't know how you missed that, but they did. They thought she was 50.
Well, people make mistakes.
When I took her ID, we didn't know. When did it change? She gave me 55.
All right, Dave. Yes, sir.
What it is, when you, that form right there, what you're gonna have to do is go on your computer, go to Broadview, and start looking for housing. And you wanna find housing that maybe the same square footage of building, the same, type of house. That's your proof. And you just put it, and like he told you, he told everybody what to do. He said, go to the computer and do it. And I'm telling you, I do it. And yeah, I do. I send it over to her.
Well, thank you, and I'm happy to help.
I'm just saying that the review, that's the way to get your money back. And not only that, you can go back years.
Yep.
You can go back years and reclaim that money that you paid too much in.
Would this be helpful for you if you just made an appointment with Lily and stopped by, and then we can walk you through the system to help you out? Okay, so yeah, because I think if we can, okay, well, if we can put some services and help you to assist you get through this process, we're here to serve. And so we just have to block the time off in our schedules to get to you. But we will get the information and sit down and bring you in the office and just go through it to help you out with this process. Would that be helpful?
Yes,
Okay, so just see Lily, make sure I get your contact information, and then she'll schedule some time for me to spend with you to get that done. Yes, ma'am.
Is the only way for you to do it is for you to go through the computer? You can't go over there on Harrison and have them to do it?
Well, you can go over to the assessor office in the township, but you want to do it yourself to get the actual numbers on what that looks like. So you can go, they'll help you and get everything that you need, but I just like doing stuff myself. I like to do my own research.
Okay. I'm through. I was in 2 weeks ago to do an appeal. She did not tell me to do a certificate of error. Yeah, they just do basic. They really don't do anything in there. Yeah, 'cause they just snatched, I watched them, they just snatched
Well, we're more than happy to assist my office or the clerk office. I know he's always willing to assist. So we can help the residents to kind of get you through that process. So I'm gonna just go down through the row and see if there's anything you want to say, Bob, from the the library?
No, at this time, just want to thank everyone for attending. It was very, very informative.
Yes, it was.
Really enjoyed coming. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ashcroft. He's the interim superintendent for 209.
Yes, hi everyone, thank you. What I can say, just I guess on Proviso's side, is we're just finishing up a giant master facilities plan, and I was very thankful. And I wasn't in this seat when that went on, but that was something we did without passing a referendum. And speaking of Lombard, they're doing that same thing and building a library and doing some renovations that was not the case in that area. But happy to help anytime. If you have any questions at all for anything Proviso related, I'm happy to help at any point in time. You can find my information on our district website, or I'd be happy to stay and provide that information to you as well.
Thank you for being here. Dr. Stockton?
Good evening, everyone. I echo my colleagues' sentiments. Us at Bellwood District 88, we also have a 10-year master facility plan that we are working on to obviously address the deferred maintenance. We also just did an educational alignment study where we were looking very closely at the health of our buildings to see, what repairs need to be made. We actually were going to go for a referendum but decided against it due to the recent tax increases, because we didn't want to put any more tax burden on the residents, because as mayor and as everyone has said tonight, the residents are paying way too much. And so, but we are going to, as opposed to going for that referendum, we're going to work our plan, look at our 10-year plan, and continue to build money in our reserves so that we can address that deferred maintenance over time. So I just want to shout out Broadview. I'm from Broadview, although I work in District 88. Always a pleasure to be home, and I thank you all so much for the opportunity tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Stockton. Dr. Hassan?
Good evening. I'm just so happy I'm here because I too am going to file a certificate of error. I actually brought my tax bill. I pay taxes in District 89 as well. So I am concerned we spend money like, it's our own, and I think that's important to know. There's a difference between what you need and what you want. We definitely want to provide the highest quality of education for our children, but we are very conscientious about how we spend money. I'm really excited about Roosevelt School. They're accomplishing great things under the leadership of Dr. Griffin, and it's actually one of our best schools. So we're really excited, and we will continue to excel and provide the best academic programs for students, not only at Roosevelt School, but throughout Maywood District 89. So we're really excited about being here. Thank you so much for having us, and looking forward to the partnership with you to, again, just continue to provide the best quality of education. It's so important to me as a mother. So I understand what you all are saying. My children are grown. I know I probably don't look that old, but although I too pay these high taxes, I'm like, I don't have kids here either. But it does take a village. And Hillary Clinton didn't make that up. That's an African proverb. It takes a village to raise a child. Absolutely. And so although we may not have, they are our children. All the children are our children.
That's right.
Maybe not biologically, but it's important that as a village we pour into our children. There's another African proverb that says a child that does not feel the embrace of the village will burn it down in order to fill it. So if we don't pour into all of the children's education, that's going to impact the quality of our community. So I truly believe in continuously improving our communities through the power of education. And the same, education I wanted for myself, I wanted for my biological children, is that same quality of education I want for every single child that's coming in through our doors every single day. And our children just aren't competing locally anymore. They're competing globally against people from other countries who now don't even have to leave the comfort of their own homes. So we want our children to be able to compete globally to get any job that they may want to get. So,
And to come back to our communities.
exactly,
That's right.
because that's
be
what we've
teachers.
done.
Yep.
Dr. Stockton and I both grew up here, and we're here to make sure that that quality of education continues.
That's right.
So again, thank you so much for having us.
Thank you, Dr. Hassan. Brian Dawson, Brian wears two hats. He's also on the Lindop School Board, but he's not here talking about the Lindop School Board. I believe it's the Park District.
But I can say I'm very proud of the work we're doing over at District 92. The Park District actually got commissioned a facility master plan last year, our first one, and kind of lets you know exactly what's going on. When you peel back the cover on something and you look underneath and see what's been happening in the last 40, 60 years. And so since then, we saw where our greatest needs were. And so even though we want to speak to the community on the things that we want, our greatest needs were actually repairing the roofs. Because if you don't get the roof done, it can look great, you can have a good time inside, but if the roof starts caving in, you got a bigger problem. I'm happy to say that we've had the roof at Schroeder Park repaired, and now we're moving this week to start on the Beverly Center roof. Just moving forward, it's small steps, but things take, how they say, how do you climb a mountain, step by step.
Yep.
And give us some time, we're working, please come and see us. Every penny we get, our penny pension, you see it in the cost that you get because we subsidize every class that we get. So if you want to do line dancing or yoga, or put your child in ballet or cardio boxing, or you want to do karate, you'll see that our prices are the lowest around.
Yeah.
Now, we might not have the newest things, but however, we try to serve our residents first and foremost, and we'll reinvest that money back into you and meet you where you are. So you might say, well, Oak Park is this. Yeah, how much does it cost? Well, we'll stay right here.
Yep.
So, we're doing what we can for our community and taking these small steps to build, work with us. And I'm a Broadview resident. I learned to swim in that pool. I learned to
Me too.
play baseball on that field. And so that's why it's so important to me to try to give back in whatever capacity, whether it's with the school or the Park District. But we're working so hard. I'm so appreciative of our mayor for working hard for us and bringing us to this point where we can explain things, because sometimes people can be passionate about things but don't know where to put their energy. And so when the mayor gives this and we get the information we need, we can point people in the right direction, and then maybe instead of working individually, work together.
That's right.
And move in a common direction to speak up for our community and move it forward. And as she said, and as Mr. Rogers said, if they see that there are so many people, I'm sorry, did I get the name wrong?
I was thinking the TV show.
But sometimes, you really have to speak up and speak up as a group. I mean, there are people who in our communities have known some of this information and they're working individually. But when we start working as a group, they see it's a bigger problem. It is a systemic problem, and that's when we can better affect change. So thank you for doing this. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Brian. I appreciate that. So everyone has a facility plan that you heard, so they working through their facilities, working the plan. The Village of Broadview, in 2006, they put in a comprehensive plan, and to our surprise, it was a comprehensive plan that was just for land use, how we utilize land. And so we have to look at a bigger picture, like transportation, environmental sustainability. It's a whole bunch of stuff that come with that. So the Village Board of Trustees, I'm grateful for them because we incorporated, we are working on our comprehensive plan. It's a 20-year plan. Once we have that plan in place, now we really going to be intentional focusing on those areas. And so we know environmental sustainability, particularly in black communities, has never been on the radar. But we've been very fortunate enough to get a whole bunch of money from federal government to help us with clean energy initiatives, environmental, and we're applying for some tree canopy grants. So a lot of stuff that we do through grant research and got a grant writer on board. We just hired a federal lobbyist to help us with some of that heavy lifting on the federal level because it's a lot of funding that came out of the Biden administration. And so we are tapping into that. So we work together, and I actually am happy that I get to work with all of these great people that sit here in our village. We're not at odds. We work together. We have cohesiveness. Even when Brian talked about the swimming pool, my daughter learned how to swim there, and it's been, and they know, and I'm very public about it, but it's been very disheartening to me that pool is not open. And so when we got some capital funding, we had a surplus of all of the capital stuff that we did, so we allocated, we went into an intergovernment agreement with the Park District, giving them $800,000 to get that pool up. And so it's just, and even though it's a different taxing body, we had to go to those that gave us the money to get permission to allocate that. And my story is, this is Broadview. It doesn't matter who the taxing body received the money, how we gift it and share it to impact the lives of people that live here. And so that we was able to do that. So I'm happy to do that work to share our resources with all of us. When we do Juneteenth, we share our resources. They put in money to help us have a nice Juneteenth celebration because we couldn't do it by ourselves. So we're very blessed in Broadview. I'm grateful for all of you all showing up tonight. Those that's viewing us online, thank you for participating. But again, this is about policy change. Nothing happens without policy. So we're gonna need some intentional data researchers to help us so that I can have an argument or a position to say this is the direction that Broadview would like to go in, and we would like this consideration, and maybe it won't just impact the village of Broadview, maybe impact multiple communities throughout Cook County. But I like to be intentional with the work that I do, and that's intentional looking at policy. So thank you for your time. If you have any questions, we'll take questions afterwards, but it is already 8:05, and I know a lot of us have long days.
Mayor Thompson,
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to say that the Broadview Public Library District greatly appreciates the community, the village of Broadview. Encourage you to come by us, come by the library, see what services we have, what programs we have. And I just want to reiterate, this is a very important subject. About 89% of our budget expenditures come from property taxes. So it's a very important subject, and I really, once again, I really appreciate everyone coming out and showing their interest and concern. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. So readers are leaders. We may not have kids in the school system, but we know kids that live on the block. We know kids that's in the community visiting auntie, cousins, grandmas, and all of that. If you see these young people, encourage them. Encourage them to get a library card. Encourage them to read at least 15 minutes a day. And then join us, because a group of kids at Lindop, we're actually advocating for crosswalks at 17th and 15th. And we're gonna walk to school on August 15th. I'm asking all of Broadview to come walk with us across this 17th Avenue, safe passage to Lindop, because we have to tell a story. And when kids are involved and they vocal and telling their story, people listen. I can jump up and down all day long. They may not listen to me, but the kids that's got to go to that school that's taking a position that's advocating for crosswalks at Lindop, they taking a position, and I'm helping them create policy and be change leaders. It's intentional leadership from this point moving forward. So give us your name and phone number, because I'm calling you. Thank you and good night.
Thank you.